The text message hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that started normal and ended with my entire world crumbling. I was sitting in my Ford pickup outside the Henderson construction site, double-checking load calculations for the new shopping center, when my phone buzzed with Victor's name. "Your buddy Craig just showed up at your place with flowers for your wife." I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold in the cup holder. Craig Lorman. Insurance agent, neighborhood barbecue regular, guy who always laughed too loud at his own jokes. The same Craig who'd been asking weird questions about my work schedule lately. My fingers moved without thinking, pulling up the doorbell camera app. The loading screen felt like it took forever. Then there it was, crystal clear in high definition. Craig's silver Lexus in my driveway. Craig himself walking up my front steps with a bouquet of roses and what looked like a bottle of wine. The timestamp showed 3:32 p.m., 15 minutes ago. I watched my wife Jessa open the door. She wasn't wearing her usual yoga pants and oversized sweater. Instead, she had on that silk robe I'd bought her for Christmas. The expensive one she claimed was too nice for everyday wear. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, makeup flawless like she was heading to a photo shoot. They embraced, not a friendly neighbor hug. This was intimate, familiar, the kind of embrace that spoke of practice and repetition. Craig's hands lingered on her waist. Jessa's fingers traced his collar. Then they disappeared inside my house, and the camera showed only an empty doorway. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, watching that empty doorway, my mind racing through 1,000 possibilities and landing on only one terrible conclusion. My wife of 15 years was cheating on me with Craig Lorman, and they were doing it in the house I'd bought, in the bed I'd paid for, probably on the Egyptian cotton sheets I'd given her for our anniversary. My phone buzzed again. Victor. "You seeing this? Want me to keep watching?" Victor Ames lived 3 houses down from us, a divorce attorney with too much time on his hands and a front window that offered a perfect view of our driveway. He'd been my friend since college, the kind of guy who remembered every slight and never forgot a favor. If anyone would help me figure this out, it was Victor. I typed back, "Keep watching. Take screenshots if you can." "Already on it. Sorry, man, this sucks." I started the truck and drove home, my mind switching into the analytical mode that had served me well as a structural engineer. Evidence, documentation, proof. I'd built my career on facts and calculations, on understanding how things worked and why they failed. Now, I needed to apply that same methodical approach to my marriage. The Lexus was gone when I pulled into my driveway 45 minutes later. I sat in the cab for a moment, studying my house like I was seeing it for the first time. 2-story colonial, brick facade, white trim I'd painted myself last summer, mortgage payment of $2,847 a month that came out of my checking account, property taxes I paid every year, insurance premiums in my name, my house, my rules, my wife screwing around with my neighbor. I walked through the front door and found Jessa in the kitchen, wearing jeans and a sweater now, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She was loading the dishwasher, moving with the kind of focused energy that meant she was nervous about something. "Hey, you're home early," she said without looking up. "How was the Henderson site?" "Fine," I said, watching her carefully. "Quiet afternoon. You?" "Oh, the usual. Cleaned the house, did some laundry, meal prep for tomorrow's clients." She closed the dishwasher and hit the start button. "I was thinking we could order Chinese for dinner. I'm too tired to cook." Too tired. Right. I wondered what had worn her out. "Sure," I said. "Chinese sounds good." I went upstairs to change clothes, stopping in our bedroom doorway. The bed was made, but not the way Jessa usually made it. The pillows were arranged differently, and there was a faint scent in the air that didn't belong. Cologne. Craig's cologne, the overpowering stuff he wore to neighborhood barbecues. In my dresser drawer, hidden behind a stack of old t-shirts, I kept a small notebook where I tracked household expenses and project timelines. Tonight, I started a new section in the back. A timeline. A record. Evidence. 3:32 p.m. Craig arrives with flowers and wine. 3:47 p.m. Victor texts me. 4:15 p.m. Craig's car gone when I arrive home. 4:20 p.m. Jessa claims she spent day cleaning and doing laundry. 4:22 p.m. Bedroom smells like Craig's cologne. I closed the notebook and went back downstairs. Jessa was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I entered the room, and for just a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. "Everything okay?" she asked. "You seem quiet." "Just thinking about work," I said. "The Henderson project has some complicated load calculations." She nodded and went back to her phone. I sat in my recliner and pretended to watch TV, but my mind was elsewhere, calculating different kinds of loads and stress points. How long had this been going on? How many other afternoons had Craig's Lexus been in my driveway while I was at work? How many lies had Jessa told me while looking me straight in the eye? My phone buzzed with a text from Victor. "Got some interesting photos. Want to see them?" I glanced at Jessa. She was absorbed in whatever she was doing on her phone, probably texting Craig about their close call. "Send them," I typed back. The photos arrived one by one. Craig walking up my front steps, flowers in hand. Jessa opening the door in her silk robe. The embrace. Craig's hand on her lower back as they went inside. Time stamps on every image. The last photo was different. It showed Craig leaving, but he looked disheveled. His hair was messed up, his shirt wrinkled, and he was carrying his jacket instead of wearing it. The timestamp read 4:10 p.m. 38 minutes. They'd been together in my house for 38 minutes. I saved every photo to a secure folder on my phone, then looked up at my wife. She was still scrolling, occasionally smiling at something on her screen. Probably his messages. Probably planning their next rendezvous. "I'm going to grab a beer," I said, standing up. "You want anything?" "I'm good," she said without looking up. In the kitchen, I opened a bottle of beer and leaned against the counter, staring out the window at Craig's house. It was a smaller place than ours, a ranch style with vinyl siding and a chain-link fence around the backyard. Craig lived there with his wife Marlene, a sharp-eyed woman who worked as a bookkeeper and had never seemed to like me much. I wondered if Marlene knew about her husband's afternoon activities. Probably not. Cheaters were usually good at compartmentalizing, at keeping their lies straight and their stories simple. But I was good at finding structural weaknesses, at identifying the points where pressure would cause the most damage, and I was about to become very, very good at applying pressure. My phone buzzed with another message from Victor. "You want in on some payback?" I smiled for the first time all day and typed back, "Always." The next morning, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. with a plan forming in my head. Jessa was still asleep beside me, her blonde hair spread across the pillow, looking innocent and beautiful in the early morning light. For a moment, I almost convinced myself that yesterday had been some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe Craig had just stopped by to borrow something. Maybe the embrace had been friendly, nothing more. Then I remembered the cologne in our bedroom and the way Jessa had lied so easily about her afternoon. I slipped out of bed quietly and went downstairs to my home office, a small room off the kitchen where I kept my work computer and project files. I'd always been meticulous about record keeping, both for work and personal finances. Now that attention to detail was going to serve a different purpose. I pulled up our joint bank account online and started scrolling through the past 6 months of transactions. At first, everything looked normal. Mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, gas. But as I dug deeper, patterns started to emerge. Lunch at Romano's Italian restaurant on days when Jessa claimed she was meal prepping at home. Charges at the Marriott downtown when she said she was visiting her sister in Columbus. A $200 charge at Victoria's Secret that I'd never seen the results of. I screenshot everything and saved it to the same folder as Victor's photos. Then I went deeper, checking her credit card statements, her PayPal account, even her Venmo transactions. The picture that emerged made my stomach turn. For the past 4 months, Jessa had been living a double life. Restaurant meals, hotel stays, expensive lingerie, even charges for couples massage sessions at a spa I'd never heard of. All of it carefully hidden from me, paid for with credit cards I didn't monitor closely enough. The worst part was realizing how stupid I'd been. All those late nights at the gym, all those weekend client emergencies, all those times she'd been too tired for dinner or too stressed for conversation. She hadn't been building her fitness business. She'd been building a relationship with Craig Lorman. I printed out every suspicious transaction and organized them by date in a manila folder. Then I started cross-referencing them with my work schedule, checking to see if there was a pattern. There was. Almost every suspicious charge coincided with days when I'd been out of town on business or working late on a project. Jessa had been using my absence as an opportunity to play house with her boyfriend, and she'd been doing it with money from accounts I funded. By 7 a.m., I had a comprehensive timeline of her affair spanning 4 months. By 7:30, I'd created a detailed financial summary showing exactly how much money she'd spent on her relationship with Craig. The total was $4,147. Jessa came downstairs at 7:45, already dressed in her yoga pants and sports bra, her gym bag slung over her shoulder. "Morning," she said, kissing my cheek like she did every day. "I've got 3 clients this morning, then lunch with Rebecca. I'll probably be home around 3. Rebecca was her business partner at the fitness studio, a woman I'd met exactly twice in the 2 years they'd been working together. Another convenient excuse for unexplained absences. "Sounds good," I said, closing the manila folder casually. "I'll be at the Morrison site most of the day. Might be late getting home." "Okay. Love you." She grabbed her keys and headed for the door. "Love you too," I said, and meant it. That was the hell of it. Despite everything, despite the lies and the cheating and the financial betrayal, I still loved my wife, which made what I was about to do both necessary and devastating. After Jessa left, I called Victor. "Please tell me you have a plan," he said without preamble. "I'm working on it. Can you meet me for coffee? I need some legal advice." "Absolutely. How about that place on Maple Street, the one with the terrible coffee and excellent privacy?" "Perfect. Give me 20 minutes. Grounded Coffee was exactly the kind of place Victor had described. Terrible coffee, uncomfortable chairs, and absolutely no one we knew. We sat in a corner booth, and I spread out my evidence like a prosecutor preparing for trial. Victor whistled low when he saw the financial records. 4 months, huh? And she's been spending your money on hotel rooms with this guy? "Our money," I corrected. "Joint accounts, joint credit cards, everything's in both our names." "Which actually works in your favor," Victor said, flipping through the bank statements. "Ohio is a no-fault divorce state, but judges still consider financial misconduct when dividing assets. If you can prove she was using marital funds to support an extramarital relationship, I can prove it. The question is what to do with the proof." Victor leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. "What do you want, Grant? Do you want to save your marriage, or do you want to end it?" It was a fair question, and one I'd been avoiding since yesterday afternoon. Part of me wanted to confront Jessa, to give her a chance to explain and apologize, and promise it would never happen again. But a bigger part of me, the part that had been cataloging her lies and calculating her betrayals, wanted something else entirely. "I want her to understand what she's done," I said finally. "I want her to face consequences. Real consequences." "Okay. And what about Craig?" I smiled, and Victor smiled back. We'd known each other for 20 years, and he could read my moods better than anyone. "Craig's a different kind of problem," I said. "He's not just cheating on his wife. He's doing it with mine in my house, with my money indirectly funding their little romance. That requires a more creative solution. I like creative, Victor said. What do you have in mind? I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos he'd taken yesterday. These are good, but they're not enough. I need more evidence, more documentation. I need to catch them in the act in a way that leaves no room for denial. That's doable. I work from home most days and I've got a clear view of your driveway. What else? I need to know more about Craig's situation, his finances, his marriage, his job. If I'm going to apply pressure, I need to know where he's vulnerable. Victor nodded thoughtfully. Marlene Lorman is actually a client of mine. Nothing dramatic, just some contract review work for her bookkeeping business. But I know she's the type who doesn't tolerate nonsense. If she found out about Craig's extracurricular activities, she'd take him apart. Professionally and personally, the woman is thorough. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both of us thinking through the implications. Then Victor spoke again. You know, there's something else you should consider. If Jessa's been lying to you about this, what else has she been lying about? Her business, her clients, her finances? It was a good point. Jessa's fitness business had always been somewhat mysterious to me. She claimed to have a steady roster of personal training clients, but I rarely saw any evidence of them. No phone calls during dinner, no weekend sessions, no real growth in her income despite supposedly working full-time. I'll look into it, I said. But first, I want to catch them together again. I want documentation that's so clear and comprehensive that there's no way for either of them to deny what's happening. When's your next business trip? I checked my calendar. Thursday and Friday. I'm supposed to be in Toledo for the Riverside project. Perfect. I'll keep watch, get photos, maybe even some video if I can manage it. What about audio? I'd been thinking about that too. I've got a security system with cameras inside the house, motion activated, cloud storage. If they're in there for any length of time, it'll record everything. Everything? Everything. Victor grinned. This is going to be interesting. We finished our terrible coffee and shook hands like we were sealing a business deal. In a way, we were. The business of revenge, carefully planned and methodically executed. I spent the rest of the day at the Morrison site, but my mind was elsewhere, working through scenarios and contingencies. By evening, I had the outline of a plan that would expose Jessa's affair, humiliate Craig, and leave both of them facing serious consequences for their actions. The plan was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its potential impact. All I needed now was patience and the right opportunity to set it in motion. That opportunity would come sooner than I expected. Thursday morning arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that matched my mood perfectly. I packed my overnight bag with deliberate care, making sure Jessa saw me loading my laptop and project files into my truck. Toledo, right? She asked, leaning against the doorframe in her robe. The same silk robe she'd worn for Craig 3 days earlier. Right. Riverside Shopping Center. I'll be back Friday evening, probably around 7. I kissed her goodbye, noting how she turned her head slightly so my lips caught her cheek instead of her mouth. Drive safe, she said. I'll miss you. The lie came so easily to her that I almost admired the skill involved. Almost. I drove to Toledo as planned, checked into my hotel, and had dinner with the Riverside project team. But at 6 a.m. Friday morning, instead of heading to the construction site, I drove back to Cleveland. The round trip took 3 hours, which meant I'd be home by 9 a.m., a full 10 hours before Jessa expected me. Victor was waiting for me at the coffee shop, practically vibrating with excitement. They took the bait, he said before I'd even sat down. Yesterday afternoon, 2:15 p.m., Craig showed up with flowers again, but this time he also had a bottle of champagne and what looked like takeout from Romano's. How long did he stay? 2 hours and 43 minutes. I got photos of him arriving and leaving, plus some shots through your living room window. Your security cameras should have captured the rest. I pulled up the security app on my phone, scrolling through the motion-activated clips from yesterday afternoon. There were dozens of them, starting with Jessa letting Craig into the house and ending with their goodbye kiss at the front door. But it was the clips from upstairs that made my hands shake with rage. My bedroom. My bed. My wife and her lover, captured in high-definition detail by cameras I'd installed to protect my home from burglars. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so infuriating. "You okay?" Victor asked, noticing my expression. "I'm perfect," I said, saving the clips to my evidence folder. "Did you get a chance to look into Craig's situation?" "I did some digging. Craig's not as successful as he pretends to be. His insurance agency is struggling, he's behind on his mortgage, and Marlene's bookkeeping business is basically keeping them afloat. If she found out about the affair and divorced him, he'd be financially ruined." "What about Marlene herself?" "Like I said, she's thorough, and she has a reputation for holding grudges. There's a reason her business is successful while Craig's is failing. She's the brains of that family." I nodded, filing away the information. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to confront Jessa this afternoon, but not the way she expects. I'm going to give her a chance to come clean, to tell me the truth voluntarily." "You think she will?" "No. But when she doesn't, when she lies to my face one more time, I'll have moral justification for what comes next." Victor raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "Total exposure, public humiliation, financial consequences. I'm going to make sure that everyone in our social circle knows exactly what kind of people Jessa and Craig really are." "That's comprehensive. I'm a thorough guy." We parted ways, and I drove home, parking in the garage so Jessa wouldn't see my truck if she happened to look out the window. The house was quiet when I entered through the back door. Jessa's car was gone, which meant she was either at the gym or running errands. I went upstairs to our bedroom and stood in the doorway, looking at the bed where my wife had betrayed me less than 24 hours earlier. The sheets had been changed, but I could still smell Craig's cologne in the air. In my dresser drawer, I found the manila folder containing all my evidence and added the new photos and video clips Victor had provided. The documentation was now comprehensive enough to leave no doubt about what had been happening. Jessa came home at 2:30 p.m., calling out a cheerful, "Hello!" as she entered through the front door. I was waiting in the living room, the manila folder on the coffee table in front of me. "Grant?" Her voice carried a note of confusion. "I thought you weren't coming home until tonight." "Change of plans," I said calmly. "We finished early. Sit down, Jessa. We need to talk." She saw the folder and went very still. For a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw fear in her eyes. Then she composed herself and sat down across from me. "What's this about?" "I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Is there anything you want to tell me about what you've been doing while I've been traveling for work?" The question hung in the air between us. This was her chance, her opportunity to come clean and maybe salvage something from the wreckage of our marriage. I found myself hoping, despite everything, that she would take it. Instead, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "I don't know what you mean. I've been working, running errands, the usual stuff." "Why?" The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that I knew she'd been preparing for this conversation. She'd probably rehearsed it with Craig, working out the details of her story in case I ever became suspicious. "The usual stuff," I repeated. "Like yesterday afternoon?" "Yesterday I had 3 training sessions, then I went grocery shopping. I was home by 5, made dinner, watched Netflix. Pretty boring day, actually." I opened the manila folder and pulled out Victor's photos from yesterday, spreading them across the coffee table like a dealer laying out cards. Jessa's face went white as she saw herself opening the front door for Craig, embracing him, leading him inside. "Want to try again?" I asked. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, incredibly, she went on the offensive. "You had me watched?" she demanded. You hired someone to spy on me? I didn't hire anyone. Victor lives 3 houses down, remember? He has eyes. This is, she gestured at the photos. This is a violation of my privacy. You can't just, I can't what? I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the security camera clips. This is my house, Jessa. Those are my cameras. That's my bed you're screwing Craig Lorman in. She watched the clip in silence, her face cycling through a range of expressions. Shock, fear, anger, and finally, resignation. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Since Tuesday. The question is, how long has it been going on? She looked down at her hands. 4 months. 4 months. I pulled out the financial records. 4 months of hotel rooms and restaurant meals and lingerie purchases. 4 months of lying to my face every single day. 4 months of using our money to fund your relationship with another man. Grant, No. I stood up, gathering the photos and documents. You had your chance to tell the truth, and you chose to lie instead. Now we do this the hard way. What does that mean? I smiled, and she flinched at the expression on my face. It means I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. Your clients, your friends, your family. Everyone. You can't do that. Watch me. I left her sitting in the living room and went upstairs to pack a bag. I'd be staying at Victor's place for the next few days while I put the final phase of my plan into motion. The confrontation phase was over. Now came the consequences. Victor's guest room was spartanly furnished but comfortable, with a clear view of my house across the street. I'd been there for 2 days, watching Jessa's increasingly frantic attempts to reach me by phone and text. I ignored them all. She's been pacing around your living room for the past hour, Victor observed, handing me a cup of coffee. Keeps looking out the window like she's expecting you to come home. She's probably trying to figure out what I'm planning, I said. Jess has always been good at reading people, but she's never seen me like this before. Like what? Angry. Really, truly angry. I've spent 15 years being the reasonable one, the one who compromises and keeps the peace. She has no idea what I'm capable of when I stop being reasonable. My phone buzzed with another text from Jessa. Please come home so we can talk about this like adults. I showed it to Victor, who snorted. Like adults? She's been lying to you for 4 months. That's what I told her. I set the phone aside and pulled out my laptop. Ready to see phase 1? I'd spent the morning creating a comprehensive digital presentation titled The Craig Lorman Affair, a Timeline. It included every photo Victor had taken, every suspicious financial transaction, and selected clips from my security cameras. The evidence was organized chronologically and presented with the same attention to detail I brought to my engineering projects. This is thorough, Victor said, scrolling through the presentation, and devastating. What are you planning to do with it? Email it to everyone in our social circle, our neighbors, Jessa's clients, people from the gym, Craig's coworkers. I want everyone to know exactly what kind of people they really are. That's nuclear. They made it nuclear when they decided to screw around in my house. Victor nodded approvingly. I like it. But what about Marlene? She deserves to know what her husband's been up to. Marlene gets special treatment. I opened a new folder on my laptop. I've prepared a separate package just for her. Financial records showing how much money Craig has been spending on his affair, photos of him leaving my house looking like he just got laid, and a detailed timeline of every rendezvous. She's going to destroy him. That's the idea. I spent the rest of the afternoon refining my presentations and compiling email lists. By evening, I had everything ready to go. All I needed was the right moment to pull the trigger. That moment came at 8:47 p.m. when Victor called me to the window. You need to see this, he said. Craig's Lexus was in my driveway again. Through the living room window, I could see him and Jessa embracing, apparently celebrating what they thought was my absence from town. They think I'm still in Toledo, I realized. Jessa probably told him I wouldn't be back until late tonight. Perfect timing, Victor said. You want to catch them in the act one more time? I was already reaching for my phone. Better than that. I'm going to catch them, document everything, and then spring my trap while they're still together. I activated the security cameras and settled in to wait. Craig and Jessa moved upstairs 20 minutes later, and the bedroom cameras captured everything in excruciating detail. While they were occupied, I sent my first email. The message to Marlene was simple and direct. Marlene, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you need to know what Craig has been doing while you're at work. The attached files contain photographic and financial evidence of his affair with my wife. I thought you deserved to know the truth. Grant Hollister. I attached the comprehensive evidence package and hit send. Then I started on the mass email to our social circle. The subject line read, "The truth about Jessa and Craig." The message was brief but devastating. For the past 4 months, my wife Jessa and our neighbor Craig Lorman have been having an affair. The attached presentation contains photographic evidence, financial records, and security camera footage documenting their relationship. I thought you should know what kind of people you're dealing with. I sent it to 43 people, including everyone in our neighborhood, Jessa's business contacts, and Craig's professional network. Then I sat back and waited for the fireworks to begin. They didn't take long. My phone started ringing at 9:15 p.m. I ignored the calls from Jessa and Craig, but I answered when Victor's ex-wife, Linda, called. Grant? Oh my God, I just got your email. Are you okay? I'm fine, Linda. Angry, but fine. I can't believe Jessa would do this. And in your own house. It's unforgivable. I thought people should know who they're really dealing with. Absolutely. Listen, I'm forwarding this to my book club. Half those women use Jessa as a trainer, and they need to know what kind of person she is. After Linda hung up, the calls started coming faster. Neighbors expressing shock and support, Jessa's clients canceling their sessions, people who'd received the email wanting to know if it was real. I confirmed that everything in the presentation was authentic and documented, then sat back to watch the fallout. At 9:43 p.m., Craig's Lexus came screeching out of my driveway. Through Victor's window, I could see him on his phone, probably trying to do damage control. Too late for that. At 9:51 p.m., Marlene's car pulled into the Lorman driveway. Even from a distance, I could see she was furious. She stormed into her house, and 10 minutes later, Craig's belongings started flying out the front door. She's throwing him out, Victor observed with satisfaction, literally throwing his stuff onto the lawn. Good for her. My phone rang again. This time it was Jessa, and I decided to answer. Grant, what have you done? Her voice was shaking with rage and panic. I told the truth. That's all. I documented your affair and shared the evidence with people who deserve to know what kind of person you really are. You can't do this. This is harassment. It's defamation. It's documentation, I interrupted. Everything in that presentation is true and verifiable. If you don't like people knowing about your affair, maybe you shouldn't have had one. My clients are canceling on me. My business is ruined. Actions have consequences, Jessa. You made your choices, now you get to live with the results. She was crying now, ugly sobs that might have moved me a week ago. Now they just sounded like the tears of someone who'd been caught and was facing the consequences of her actions. Please, she whispered. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. No, I said calmly. We can't. You ruined our marriage when you decided to screw Craig in our bed. Everything that happens now is just cleaning up the mess. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside, Marlene was still throwing Craig's belongings onto the lawn while neighbors gathered to watch the show. Phase 1 complete, I told Victor. What's Phase 2? I smiled. Phase 2 is where things get really interesting. The next morning brought a parade of consequences that exceeded even my most optimistic projections. I sat in Victor's kitchen, drinking coffee and fielding phone calls from people who'd received my email blast. The first call was from Rebecca, Jessa's business partner at the fitness studio. "Grant, I need to ask you directly. Is everything in that presentation true? Every word, every photo, every document? I can provide additional verification if you need it." There was a long pause. "We're going to have to terminate Jessa's partnership agreement. This kind of scandal, it reflects on the whole business. Half her clients have already canceled, and the others are asking questions we can't answer." "I understand. That's between you and Jessa. I'm sorry this happened to you. You didn't deserve this." The second call was from my neighbor Tom Henderson, who lived 2 doors down from Craig and Marlene. Jesus, Grant, what a mess. Marlene had the locks changed this morning, and Craig's been sitting in his car in the driveway for the past hour. She won't let him back in the house. Can't say I blame her. There's more. Apparently she called his boss at the insurance company and told him about the affair. Something about how Craig's been using company time and resources to meet up with Jessa. That was news to me, and excellent news at that. Company resources? Company car, company credit card for client lunches that were actually romantic dinners. Marlene had receipts for everything. Craig's boss fired him on the spot. I felt a warm glow of satisfaction. Marlene was proving to be even more thorough than I'd hoped. The third call was from Jessa herself, and this time she sounded desperate. "Grant, please, you have to help me fix this. Rebecca fired me, 3 of my biggest clients canceled their contracts, and my mother won't even talk to me." "I'm not the one who can fix this, Jessa. You created this situation." "But the email, the photo, it's humiliating. People are treating me like I'm some kind of pariah." "You are some kind of pariah. You're a woman who cheated on her husband with a married man in the house her husband paid for, using money from accounts her husband funded. What did you expect people's reaction to be? I expected you to handle this privately like an adult. I gave you a chance to handle it privately. You chose to lie to my face instead. So now we handle it publicly." She hung up on me, but my phone rang again immediately. This time, it was Craig. "You snake," he said, without preamble. "You destroyed my life." "No, Craig, you destroyed your own life. I just documented the process. Marlene kicked me out. She's filing for divorce and demanding half of everything I own. My boss fired me. My own neighbors won't look at me. Sounds like you're facing the consequences of your actions. This is harassment. I'm going to sue you for defamation, for invasion of privacy." "Go ahead," I said calmly. "Everything I shared was true and verifiable. I have documentation for every claim, every photo, every financial record. Take me to court, Craig. I'd love to see you try to explain those security camera videos to a judge." He hung up, but I wasn't done with Craig Lorman yet. That afternoon, I drove to the insurance office where Craig had worked until this morning. His former boss, a man named Dave Kellerman, agreed to meet with me in his office. "I want to thank you for bringing this situation to our attention," Kellerman said. "We take misuse of company resources very seriously." What exactly did Craig do? According to the records his wife provided, he'd been using his company credit card to pay for hotel rooms and restaurant meals with your wife. He claimed they were client meetings, but we don't have any clients by the name of Grant Hollister. How much money are we talking about? Nearly $3,000 over the past 4 months. We're considering filing charges for embezzlement. I left the insurance office feeling vindicated. Craig hadn't just betrayed his wife and destroyed my marriage, he'd also committed fraud against his employer. The consequences were piling up faster than he could handle them. That evening, Victor and I sat on his back deck, watching the chaos unfold across the street. Craig's belongings were still scattered across the Lorman lawn, and Marlene had posted a sign in her front yard that read, "Cheater's stuff, free to good home." "She's got style," Victor observed. "I respect that level of pettiness." "It's not pettiness," I said. "It's justice." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Marlene Lorman. Thank you for telling me the truth about my husband. He's been lying to me for months, and I never would have known if you hadn't sent that evidence. I owe you a debt of gratitude." I showed the message to Victor, who grinned. "See? You did a good deed. You saved that woman from wasting any more of her life on a cheating scumbag." I should probably respond. I typed back, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I thought you deserved to know the truth. If you need anything else for your divorce proceedings, I have additional documentation." Her response came quickly. "I may take you up on that. My lawyer says the evidence you provided will help ensure I get everything I'm entitled to in the divorce. Craig picked the wrong woman to cheat on." As the sun set over our suburban neighborhood, I felt a sense of completion that I hadn't experienced in months. The lies were exposed, the truth was public, and everyone involved was facing appropriate consequences for their actions. Jessa had lost her business, her reputation, and her marriage. Craig had lost his job, his wife, and his home. And I had lost my illusions about the woman I'd loved for 15 years. But I'd gained something too, the knowledge that I was capable of fighting back when someone tried to destroy my life. I wasn't the passive, reasonable victim they'd expected me to be. I was something much more dangerous, a structural engineer who understood exactly where to apply pressure to bring down a building, and I'd just demolished both of their lives with the same methodical precision I brought to my professional work. My phone rang one more time. It was Jessa, and her voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm leaving town," she said. "I can't stay here anymore. Everyone knows, everyone's talking about me. I can't rebuild my life with this hanging over my head." "Where will you go?" "My sister's place in Phoenix. She says I can stay there until I figure out what to do next." "That's probably for the best. Grant, I know you hate me right now, and I don't blame you. But I want you to know that I did love you. I still love you. I made terrible choices." "Yes," I said. "You did. Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about it for a long moment, watching Craig load the last of his belongings into his car across the street. "Maybe someday," I said finally. "But not today, and not anytime soon. I understand. Goodbye, Jessa. Goodbye, Grant." I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of rebuilding my life. I'd file for divorce, sell the house, maybe move somewhere new where nobody knew the story of Grant Hollister and his cheating wife. But tonight, I was content to sit on Victor's deck and watch the wreckage of 2 lives that had been destroyed by their own poor choices. Justice wasn't always pretty, but it was always satisfying.